You're all okay? Hearing nothing else, I'll assume you're all okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. My name is Ron Price, R-O-N-P-R-I-C-E. I'm the Chief of the Bozeman Police Department. I am going to read a prepared statement, and then I will be open to answer some questions with regard to this. On February 1st, Kevin Briggs fled from the Law and Justice Center while in the custody of the Bozeman Police Department. His escape resulted in further emotional distress to the survivors of his victims, fear in our community, and a breach in the public trust of our police department. Bozeman police officers and detectives worked countless hours in partners with local law enforcement and federal law enforcement throughout the West to bring Briggs back into custody. His arrest was without incident, and we have no indication that he committed any additional crimes. I believe all of us in the community are thankful for this outcome. Kevin Briggs' arrest, however, does not take away from the need to properly examine the circumstances that led to his escape. At my request, the Patrol Division Commander, Captain Dave McManus, conducted a review of the incident. I asked him to identify or focus on 4 specific areas. What led to this arrest, to this escape? Is there personal accountability? Is there organizational accountability? And what recommendations can we make to ensure that something like this never happens again? Captain McManus's report addresses each of those 4 areas. The facts indicate that Kevin Briggs was placed into an unlocked interview room within the police department. Because the interview room cannot be locked, it is our responsibility to constantly monitor him from outside that room. During the shift change, when new officers and a detective were arriving, there was insufficient transfer of information and an inappropriate change of custody. Kevin Briggs took advantage in that lapse of monitoring and escaped. As a result of the review, 2 officers were identified as bearing significant responsibility in this escape. Each officer received a disciplinary suspension of 2 weeks without pay. Organizationally, the report finds a failure to adjust and improve our practices over time regarding people in custody. Prior incidents were lost to history. They did not result in any significant changes. I commit to you that the Bozeman Police Department will take immediate and all necessary steps to ensure that nothing similar ever happens again. I've held department-wide discussions with officers and other employees to fully and openly discuss the impact that this has had on our survivors and on our community. I have implemented immediate changes in practices. We are working closely with the Gallatin County Attorney and Sheriff to identify changes that we can make in practice that will balance safety and the need to conduct thorough investigations. I believe it is critical that you trust your public servants. I have been as open and as transparent as the law will allow. At the conclusion of this press conference, media packets will be available that contain Captain McManus's report and my finding and disciplinary documents. During the course of my time here in Bozeman, I've had the opportunity to work with dedicated citizens, officers, and staff that provide service because they believe in our community. It hurts us all to know that we have lost a part of that public trust. That trust that we rely upon to effectively do our jobs. Ultimately, as the Chief of Police, I am responsible for the operations of the Bozeman Police Department. And as the Chief, I apologize to each and every member of our community that the impact that this incident has had with regard to their sense of safety. And I hope with these steps, we begin to rebuild the public trust. That concludes my prepared statement, and I'm willing to answer questions.
You named the 2 officers who were suspended?
The 2 officers' names are presented in the disciplinary documents that will be provided at the end.
Why can't you lock the doors being in?
That's one of the, we have requested a legal review from the county attorney's office in that it's a county building. There is a historical stance that to lock those doors in an interview room turns it from an interview room to a detention room. And there's also a question of fire code. We've asked for a legal review to find out if that information is real or is antiquated.
What was the policy on when you had someone in your custody in the law and justice center?
There isn't a policy that speaks specifically to the interview room. However, there is a policy that indicates anytime anyone is in restraints, meaning handcuffs, that they're required to be physically monitored for escape and also for their safety.
Did you know about the chair that was being used?
I became immediately aware of the chair during this. You know, I've walked by and seen a chair propped up against there. Did I know it was a matter of practice? And in reality, that practice was very, very limited. It was generally involving a compliant juvenile runaway, someone who's not in restraints, waiting for a parent to come pick them up. It was not a practice for anyone who was there in restraints or in any kind of significant custody status, and certainly would not be appropriate in something like this.
In the report it says it was used as an alarm. Is that, so was it used propped under the handle?
The door, no, the door opens inward.
The door opens inward, so it was, so if
That's
it came out, it would not go over.
That's correct.
And so just no one heard this time?
I'm sorry?
No one heard this
No.
time?
Obviously.
What changes have you guys?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
What changes have you guys made?
Well, first of all, there is, I spoke to the department-wide meetings and discussions about impact. As part of that department-wide meeting, that is a very, very clear statement that physical observation and physical monitoring is a must, no matter the nature of the offense, no matter the nature of the person that's in there. Secondly, the captain is working to identify potentials for a hard transfer or a written documented transfer of custody. Any kind of a written document that required movement and signature of one officer to another would have stopped this. And then finally, like I said earlier, we're working with the county attorney to identify areas and potential differences in the way we can handle custody.
So do you want to see a lock on those doors?
If it's legally defensible. But what I ultimately want to see is if we have a person who is a danger to this magnitude, they need to be in the jail system and not in an interview room.
Right, because the Law and Justice Center is not a secure facility.
It is anything but a secure
And
facility.
it's a giant one across the street.
Yep. Directly behind.
Right behind it, yeah.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned a lot about the old detention center in here for reasons why these practices were...
Actually, the captain did.
The captain did,
Yes.
sorry. So why bring up the old detention facility when it's old?
And that was kind of an illustrative example of how we've failed to move some of our practices forward with time. In the old detention facility, there wasn't an appropriate interview room. There was nothing that would allow something like that. And secondly, our practices, especially for nonviolent offenses, were to bring somebody in, hold them, and get somebody to come pick them up. And generally, 9 times out of 10, they were compliant.
You apologize to community. I expect, have you gotten a lot of backlash from community members and specifically the victim, the alleged victim and her family?
She's not an alleged victim. She's a victim and she's a survivor. And I have spoken directly with both she and her family several times during this. The captain in charge of detectives has been working closely with both of them and has been in constant contact. I spoke with both of them today to let them know about this so that they wouldn't be blindsided by media reports.
Okay, outside of her, what sort of backlash have you been receiving from the community?
Honestly, I've received very supportive reactions from the community. I believe people recognize that that mistakes happen. This is a horrible mistake to happen, and it had tremendous impact. Again, sense of fear and breach of trust, and financial impact. All of those things together, in spite of them, we have throughout the department received a lot of support, and I appreciate that, and I know my officers really appreciate it.
Now again, can you describe the difference between a holding cell and an interview room just for the public? Because we've been getting a lot of questions about why
Sure.
he couldn't have been, you know, restrained to certain.
And that's the question that I've asked the county attorney to do legal research on. An interview room is just that. It is not designed to keep people in it. It is designed to provide an atmosphere where a detective or an officer and a suspect can be interviewed, where the suspect can be interviewed. It is not designed to hold people. It is not built to that level of construction, and it doesn't have those kinds of security features. At one time, part of our interview room was, they kind of transitioned it into a bit of a holding area, providing a cuffing location or a cuffing stanchion, and it was removed shortly after that because of some fears that it violated regulations. And those are the regulations I've asked the county attorney to look closely into.
And if and when you guys get a new building for growth of the department, are there going to be design changes with the interview room more towards the back of the main entrance? Because right now it's right next to the front door.
The Municipal Law and Justice Center is in the process of initial design phases. That has clearly and obviously been discussed. The building we're in now has significant shortcomings, but I would never lay the responsibility of this escape on the inadequacies of the building. We have a responsibility to know what those inadequacies are and to deal with them, and we did not do that.
Are there pending charges, or has anybody been charged in helping Mr. Briggs escape?
There have been documentation, or actually a request for prosecution that's been forwarded to the county attorney's office for his decisions. Thank you to everyone for being here. I appreciate you helping us get our message out to the community, and I appreciate you helping us attempt to rebuild our public trust. Thank you.